we think of the early pioneers, we think of, quote, living off the land. You can't do that in outer space. There's no soil. There's no oxygen. There's very little of the basic ingredients that we take for granted on the planet Earth. So living in outer space presents a whole new set of challenges.
Currently, NASA researchers are experimenting with various possible solutions to the problem of keeping humans fed during long-term missions.
For long expeditions in space, there are really three things we have to do. One, either bring our food with us. Wherever we go, take the food, wagon train. Two, terraform a planet, or find a planet where we can already grow food that can sustain us. Or three, change our own metabolism so that we can exist on a whole different kind of food.
But is it even possible to sustain life in the vacuum of space? In recent years, biologists have discovered organisms on our planet that can thrive in extreme conditions, like those found in the deepest depths of Earth's oceans.
The prevailing assumption was that there wasn't much life at the bottom of the ocean. So this idea that the deep sea could actually contain life is pretty phenomenal, because I think we had assumed that without light we couldn't have life. So the existence of whole ecosystems that are supported by chemical reactions that don't need light to generate biomolecules of energy, I think was really revolutionary.
But could the key to mankind's survival on other worlds be found not in a laboratory, but by studying past accounts of extraterrestrial encounters? Eagle River, Wisconsin, April 18, 1961. Plumber Joe Simonton is finishing his lunch when he notices a metallic saucer-shaped craft landing just outside his kitchen window.
I rushed out to see what it was, and by that time there was a hatchway opening up in the top of it, just like the trunk of your car. And in there stood a little man, I say a little man, about 5 foot tall, holding up a jug, and he motioned he wanted to drink. He motioned for water. So I walked up to him to get this jug, and I looked at his eyes, and they were so penetrating that I had to look away.
Simonton took the container and filled it with water. When he returned to the flying saucer, he noticed a second being with what appeared to be food-like wafers.
He didn't say a word. He just reached over and he got a handful of them, 4 of them, he handed them down to me, which I have one here yet.
According to Simonton, the two aliens promptly closed the hatch and took off.
Within 2 or 3 seconds, it was out of sight. Well, there I stood in the driveway, wondering what the heck I saw, what had happened. And if that was their food, God help them, because I took a bite of one of them, and it tasted like a piece of cardboard.
The case immediately garnered the attention of U.S. government agencies looking into the UFO phenomenon, including Project Blue Book and its science advisor, astronomer J. Allen Hynek.
Joe Simonton, this is an interesting case because it has a level of physical evidence that we don't often see with a lot of these cases.
NICAP, the National Investigations Committee for Aerial Phenomena, which was largely CIA back in that period of time, wants to investigate. And J. Allen Hynek, who was doing investigations for the Air Force, he wanted to investigate.
Hynek obtained samples of the wafers and requested a full analysis by the U.S. Department of Health's Food and Drug Laboratory. The report stated that the wafers consisted of chemically modified terrestrial plants, including buckwheat, soybeans, and bran. But curiously, not even the tiniest trace amount of salt was detected in the sample.
There was no salt at all found in this analysis by NICAP and J. Allen Hynek. And it's puzzling.
One of the interesting things about life on this planet is it did start in the oceans, and the ocean is salt water. And so fundamentally the water in our bodies, in our cells, and in pretty much every living thing has a certain amount of salt concentration and is ubiquitous everywhere.
According to scientists, every cell of every living organism on Earth contains a trace amount of sodium chloride, or salt. So could the complete lack of salt in Joe Simonton's so-called alien wafer really be proof that it came from an extraterrestrial source?
We see in outer space thousands of planets with different kinds of chemistries, so it's definitely possible that you could have an entire planet with very little salt on it.
What if salt is as poisonous to those aliens as cyanide is to us? That's what that alien contact could presuppose, that we've learned something about what's poisonous to them.
Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that support for the Joe Simonton story and the notion that salt might be poisonous to some extraterrestrials that have visited Earth can be found in ancient tales from around the world, in which salt is used to ward off alien entities.
The salt connection to the Simonton story is very interesting because it connects to other mythologies involving demonic beings or fairy beings. They say that if you pour salt on the ground in front of a fairy, it has to stop automatically, or that you can throw salt over your shoulder and this will ward off evil spirits. The Shinto religion uses salt as a protective mechanism. So for salt to be lacking in these pancakes is extraordinary because it links us to these ancient stories, and it actually confirms these ancient stories.
But if the stories of both the past and present are true, and these alien visitors cannot consume salt, how have they been able to sustain themselves in a place where salt is abundant? Ancient astronaut theorists believe that the answer to this one simple question may reveal both an alien agenda on Earth and perhaps even the purpose behind the creation of humankind. Egypt, the 14th century BC. According to the Hebrew Bible's book of Exodus, the prophet Moses helps the Jewish slaves to escape the tyranny of the Pharaoh, leading them across the Red Sea and into the Sinai Desert.
But during the Exodus phase, you're wandering in the desert for almost 40 years. What do you eat? Well, God provides this substance, this magical substance.
Moses appealed to Yahweh, the Old Testament God, and Yahweh caused manna, this food of the heavens, to rain down upon the Israelites.
But according to ancient astronaut theorists, the story of the Israelites receiving manna from heaven is not a story about a magical food being sent by Almighty God, but one of extraterrestrials using their advanced technology in order to prevent a group of migrating humans from starving.
We assumed that we were looking at gods in the past. We didn't know we might be looking at aliens.
In 1978, linguist George Sassoon and electrical engineer Rodney Dale released their book, The Manna Machine. In it, they propose that the supplementary Hebrew texts of the Zohar provide surprisingly detailed descriptions that point to manna being supplied by a mechanical device.
We have a concise description of it in the ancient Jewish text of the Zohar, where they described the transportable one with the tanks. Dale and Sassoon looked at these stories and they came out with the idea that this is not a description of God at all. It's a description of a machine. The manna machine was this tower-like structure, and it had these two giant tanks and a dispenser. Manna is the product of that machine, and it is based on algae cultures. This manna machine had to be taken apart every Saturday, and this was the one day that the tribe did not have any food. The basic proposition by Dale and Sassoon is that this machine was given to the Israelites by extraterrestrials.
Could it be that extraterrestrials provided technology to the Israelites to sustain them during their long journey through the desert? For the answer, ancient astronaut theorists point to passages describing a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire guiding them at night.
They're following a light that's guiding them as they wander for 40 years through these deserts of the Sinai and northern Saudi Arabia. So you have to ask yourself, is it possible that this pillar of fire is a UFO that was working with Moses to bring the Israelites to the Promised Land?
If extraterrestrials provided the Israelites with a food dispensing machine, is it possible that they had been using this or a similar technology to sustain themselves? Perhaps the same technology as the one that produced the mysterious salt-free wafer that Joe Simonton claimed was given to him by aliens in 1961. As far as ancient astronaut theorists are